Focus on the Arts is made possible by a financial support grant from Indiana University East.
Hi, I'm Chris Rogan. Welcome to Focus on the Arts. I'm very pleased to have in our midst today a performer by the name of Harold Jones. Many of you from the Richmond area might recognize that name. You don't know this, but you've been on my list for a long time with this program. Harold is a recent recipient of the Legacy Award and Distinguished Alumni and the first Star Jeanette Foundation, Living Legacy?
Yes.
Living Legacy.
Living.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you here.
Pleasure.
You know, this show's been on the air for about 5 years, and maybe 3 or 4 years ago, Leo Ryan said, "Do you know who Harold Jones is?" And I'm not from here. My husband's family's from here, and I didn't know, and he told me all about it. He says, "You've got to get him on the show." So I sort of waited you out until you were here for a big occasion.
Yeah.
Didn't they have Harold Jones Day recently?
That was
For
yesterday.
You? Did you get a key to the city, or how cool was that?
That's what I was told. And I don't know. I stayed up till midnight to see what I couldn't get into any kind of trouble.
I was going to say, what would it open? I don't even know.
Yeah, not really. I just needed a key to Mom's house where the kitchen and the laundry is.
You know, I've heard a lot about your mom. In fact, I thought about interviewing her also when I did an interview with Jeff Hamilton. I talked to Harriet, and Leo Ryan actually said, your mom would be quite fun to have on the air, and we didn't get a chance to work that out. But I understand you have quite an extended family here.
Yes, I do. My mom, her two sisters, and a brother, all are alive. They were all at the event last night. And then she has another sister in Seattle that couldn't make it to this. But I guess the youngest one has to be 70. Well, they won't want me to tell that.
No names.
No names. And then I was informed yesterday, too, by my mom's sister that I'm the first one in the family to ever have gray hair.
Well, at least you have hair. When you said you were going to go get ready, I thought, okay.
Yeah, I told you, let me comb my hair first. It's just an old habit.
I understand. You have grandchildren here, too, don't you?
Oh, yes.
I read that in the paper.
Yeah.
How many children do you have?
Well, technically I only have 2 children, but then I have 7 grandchildren.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that, because as I grew up and as I was going in my music career pursuing it, I really didn't get to spend that much time at home with my own children. So it's kind of like I got a second chance around. So when they and their children now, they can just send them to Grandpa.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I like to do that too. And how often do you get into town so that you see them?
Well, I get to Richmond probably at least once to twice a year, because I try to do colleges or clinics in this area so I can purposely tie in seeing Mom.
Right.
And I go over here to University of Ohio. I go to University of Illinois, and I go up in Wisconsin to the Birch Creek Music Camp.
Oh, good.
And there's a couple of schools up in Chicago that I go to, and I do these kind of music clinic things and work with drummers to try to teach them the art of, even though they know how to read music and they know how to play the drum, is to help them to blend in with the band and the orchestra.
Establish a style.
Yes.
And how is it that you came upon the style? And would you call it something? What is the style that you
Well, the kind of music I would say that I'm noted for is swing music and jazz.
Which is making a great comeback.
Well, and like they said, some of us don't think it ever left.
Right. But the younger people who don't know it ever existed are thinking it's new music.
They absolutely are, which is, it's just like a breath of fresh air for a person like me.
Sure.
Because, I mean, I can be now playing music with bands, and I look out in the audience, and I can see almost 50% will be under 50 years old. But they'll be under 30 years old.
An appreciative audience.
Appreciative.
Yeah.
And they're hearing it for the first time, so it sounds fresh to them.
Right.
And it's just a great feeling to have that resurgence taking place.
I teach jazz history courses at Indiana University East, and oftentimes swing was sort of criticized as not being jazz because it was written out and it was charted and the band was too big, and you know, the bebop people didn't really care for swing much. But did you get much of that?
Well, see, that's always been, I think, the problem of why so-called jazz is or isn't popular, because what do you call jazz?
Exactly.
To
What
me,
umbrella? It's a big umbrella
it's a
with lots of
big
little
umbrella.
titles under it.
I think Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, those kind of singers, I call them jazz.
Right.
As well as any of the bebopalulas. And now, also on the other hand, I mean, they called Lawrence Welk some forms of jazz, because when he stuck to the melody and then he'd have somebody come up and solo and it wasn't written, technically that's
improvised.
jazz.
So that's
improvised.
jazz, right.
And
It is difficult to come up with a definition. I know when I teach that class.
Yes.
What words do you stream together that make sense and are right for everybody?
And they got so many new words coming up now that they're losing me. There's wave jazz, cool jazz.
Well, it has to grow. It always grows.
This is
On
true.
to something else.
This is true. Yeah.
Did I hear that there's a rumor that your mom wishes you and your brother would play together, and she doesn't understand why you can't do that? Explain that. Because your brother's also a professional musician.
My brother in his own right, probably more so. He's a blues organist, and his nickname or name is Deacon Jones. And he plays with people like John Lee Hooker, and his band opens for B.B. King, and he does these kind of tours. And because he's in blues and I'm in jazz, technically, we never really play together.
Does she get that?
Not quite, no.
I just want my boys to play together.
Yeah, it's all music to her.
Yes, right.
And so that's why it's really the kind of thing that I keep in the back of my mind is no matter how much I learn and how technical I get, I want to be able to play the song so my mother can appreciate it, who doesn't know the first thing about the technical part of it.
Did you grow up in an environment of music, or how did you get hooked on this?
None
Accident?
at all. Well, no, they were running a summer music camp special here in Richmond, Indiana, for like 13 weeks for $13.
There's a deal.
And it was 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you knew you had a...
No. Mom said, now look, here's a deal we can't afford to miss.
Right.
So you're going to go and learn to play an instrument. I don't care what it is, but you're going to go and learn and play one instrument. Anything you want.
So she's responsible.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And why the drums then?
Because when I went there,
irritate your mom. I know I'm not thrilled if my sons choose drums, but I would understand it.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I would say God bless any mother of a drummer.
Yes, to put up with that.
But, well, not only to put up with it, yeah, because the mothers are there before the kids learn how to get the noise out of the music.
Yeah.
So I mean, whenever they're there, just beating and not making any sense, or trying to learn how to get these perpetual things going, the mother's there in the trenches when it really doesn't make sense, and it's not necessarily pleasant to listen to. Only the person themselves would probably know when they're doing the same thing over and over when it sounds good.
Did you always know, like from that 13 weeks, did you say, wow, this is powerful for me?
No, because when I first went in there, and
at what age was this?
14.
Okay.
14. I hate that you asked that, because when I first went in there to sign up, they had a list of all the instruments, and I didn't know how to spell trumpet for sure. So when Don Sherman, by the way, was the guy that was running this music camp and trying to get the kids and the youth of Richmond involved in music. So I got to give him a gold star right there in front.
Well, John, does that mean you did the 13 weeks too? Your dad was running it, and you're doing.
Yeah, more direct.
I see. At home.
Yeah.
You didn't have to pay though. So did your brother do this 13 weeks?
Well,
did you do it more than once?
He was 4 years younger than me. No, I only did it that one time because it was strictly for beginners.
Well, beyond that, you weren't then.
Right. So, I mean, and what happened, but to make a long story short, I went in and I really wanted to play trumpet. I didn't know how to spell it. And when he gave us the list of instruments, I knew it started with T, and I just checked off the smallest word on there that started with T, because trumpet was the smallest instrument.
Right.
So I figured that made sense. I was a pretty smart boy.
I see that.
Yeah. Well, then when Don Sherman came in the room and he wrapped his tuba around me to start to learn how to blow it.
That's a short word. Yeah. Big instrument, short
How
word.
could this be that short a word?
Right.
Just didn't make sense. But anyway, I really, as a kid, and what kid would want to play anything that's not flamboyant or something? So as my second choice, I said I'd like to play the drum.
D-R-U-M.
D-R-U-M, yeah.
You can do that.
I can spell that one. And so I went across the hall to the drum room. And over there, if you hadn't already signed up for drums, they only had the drums for those other kids. So I didn't even have a drum. and I had music put up on the music stand, and I had to play the music before I ever owned a drum.
Did you read music at that point?
Oh no, not a.
Do you read music now?
I read what they call fly specs, because a drummer has to be a better reader than an average reader of any other instruments, because there is no one way to write for the drums. And
Rhythm. You know, being a pianist myself, rhythm is just, I admire those of you who just get it.
Well,
it's math to me still.
And the older I get, the more I have trouble playing an arrangement unless I actually know the arranger.
Yeah.
Because then I know what he meant.
Well, I would guess you're not exactly even reading at that point, aren't you? Just
well, that's
feeling
what I'm
it.
going to say, because you have to be able to read so well, you can read between the lines. And a lot of times they'll write on there what the trumpets are going to be doing, and I'm going to have to be able to insert the lead in so that they know when to come in, or when they're playing to play the lead out, so it goes on into something else.
8 bars, 16 bars, 32 bars. It's
and
predictable,
like
though. I mean, it's not easy, but it's predictable once you get into a pattern.
Yeah, but a drummer has to be able to read better than anybody in the band, because I have to be playing along with the rhythm section, and I have to know what's going on here. Then when the trumpets, if they're going to be hitting something up here, I have to know that I got to play with them. If the trombones are down here, I have to play with them, and I'm over here with the trumpets. Then the saxons are down there doing something. All you hope is that all 4 of your appendages come back by the end of the song.
You're leading it then. You're in charge.
Yeah.
You know, your drummers are going to like hearing you say that, because I think drummers get a bad rap. You know, if they don't play the melody, how smart can they be?
Well,
you know,
see.
And I play in the symphony with drummers, and I'll tell you, we count on them all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just incredible as the backbone.
Yeah.
And you've got to have that.
I want to say like 40, 50 years ago in a band, they say, oh, put him on bass drum, you know, because there's no melody. Today, your best drummer with the most rhythm had better be on bass drum, because that's the heartbeat of what's going on.
That's right.
So they've just reversed it, and they've learned to come around to it like we do in progress and over the years.
When you do drum clinics, what do you hone in on? What is it that you're trying to accomplish with these novice students?
I go in and I make sure that I don't make sure, but I try to inform them that they should get a picture in their mind how they're going to want the song to sound. And I try to take one song and play it in at least 3 different ways. And there could be the straight way, like take the A train, and it would be preferably just like Duke Ellington wrote it. Then they could also slow it down and make it very beautiful, so that it could be appreciated by people who don't know anything about music, and it's just pleasant listening. Then if they're really an artiste and they don't want to lose, they want all their technique to show, they can take it into an esoteric mode, and you may not even hear the melody from the beginning to end. So I go in and show them how those 3 different styles can be played on the one song.
Oh, we do the same thing. I'm teaching romantic music this semester in music appreciation, and we're talking about the word rubato. And I play it without rubato. Rubato is lengthening or shortening the phrase within a time frame, and I play it straight, which is very hard to do. And then I play it with expression, which of course is not implied in the music at all.
Right.
You have to feel it, and you almost have to be old enough to get it. You know, it's a maturity level that a 14-year-old hasn't experienced yet.
Well, and I didn't get it at 14, but by 15,
you had to.
Yeah, I was working around this area because there was a shortage of drummers. I was just lucky enough to slide right in at that window.
Good timing.
Yeah, it was good timing, and there were several bands, and even not only that, I was very fortunate because in Richmond High School, I played in the regular concert band, the marching band, the orchestra, the Dixieland band, the pep band. And
everything you could get your hands on.
Everything I could get my hands on.
I bet you still believe in that, and don't you tell students that?
And that's what I tell students. Otherwise, they get a tunnel vision.
That's right.
And they will start only thinking that, and they'll start only sounding like that.
Well, I would guess at an early age they think they have to choose a style that they either prefer or think they want to do. And yet, it's the recognition of all of those styles that finally finds your own style that works.
Yes.
How long can you keep doing this?
Well,
you're 60-ish?
Yes. I just had a birthday February 27th, turned 61.
Happy birthday.
I shouldn't have said that. I graduated in 58. I'll leave it there.
I was going to add it all up anyway.
Yeah.
It's 2001, he's 61.
But I'll tell you, I work now with a fellow named Benny Carter. Benny Carter, I'm going to say, is 93.
Well, who did we interview recently? What drummer? It was Louis Bellson.
Oh.
He's 95.
75.
No, 75.
Well, now
he's still doing it.
Well,
it's amazing.
Exactly.
You could do this forever.
And I'm going to tell you, I was sitting at home in Richmond, Indiana in 1955 listening to Louis Bellson records with Duke Ellington. So I got to give him credit as definitely one of the places that the guys I heard. When they try to say, how do you compare yourself with Louis Bellson? I say, well, look, I heard Louis Bellson play in 55. Louis Bellson never heard me play.
Right.
So I mean, I've got to say I'm coming from him. There's nothing to compare.
So couldn't Jeff Hamilton then say Harold Jones influenced me?
Anyone younger than me? Yeah, I'm more than welcome.
And drummers that come up through the ranks. And what's your justification for why Richmond is producing such stars?
Because we've had a lot of them come through here. There was John Pierce, Paul Plummer, Joe Hunt. We had a whole lot of musicians, and I don't know what it was, but you didn't mind doing your homework. We did homework. I mean, not only that, I remember going over to other friends' house and practicing songs and things like that. And this evening, I'm going to go over to their home of the Mendenhalls, and we used to have something there. I can't remember how often. I'd say once a week, maybe. I don't know. It seemed like it was regular, and we'd learn songs together.
So is this generation different then? I mean, I suppose you don't want to be negative about
I
their
don't want to be
aspirations,
negative, but it seems they don't have time for homework. If you notice, everything is like
practicing.
No, practicing.
They're almost over involved.
Yes.
There's too many options.
Yeah, because they got the TV, now they got the website.
Yes.
You know,
Nintendo.
I bought a fax machine, and that thing went out of style a year later.
Are you emailing? Do you get all that stuff?
Oh yeah. Well, my kids give me the computer, because they drugged me kicking and screaming into this modern generation.
You have to. You're in San Francisco. They want to keep in touch.
And as I found out, people don't sit by the phone, and you can't call them anymore and just talk to somebody.
Not that simple.
No. But in the old days, you just had a phone number, and you called up somebody and say, hey, how about such and such?
Well, at least you're trying to ease in to the technology.
Yeah, and I realized that it's easier for me to be in other places if you go through the technology plan. Because
and you are in other places a lot,
yeah,
aren't you? Still touring.
Yeah.
Are you on a tour at this point?
Not right now. I just finished a week with Natalie Cole, and we were like New York and Vail, Colorado, a couple of little private party things. And a lot of the things I'm doing nowadays are private parties, because these people are hiring the entertainment for any kind of party things that they have.
Speaking of private parties, it was mentioned in your biography that you were in the White House. With the Kennedy administration at about the time the Cuban Missile Crisis was happening. And having just seen that movie, 13 Days, recently, and of course I was way too young to know that was going on. But I asked my mom, I said, were people aware of this? You were in the White House when this was going on. You mentioned that you felt tension, but what did you know?
Well, we didn't know it was as serious as it really was, and they were talking about don't drop, can't do that. And, there was a little bit of semi-tension, but I'm telling you, once and Jackie was a little late. Jackie Kennedy was a little late coming into the concert herself, because she was with her husband and whatnot. And when decided he really wasn't going to be there, she came on in. And up until that time, the little rumor was, hey, there's some Cuban talk going on and some Russian talk going on. So it was kind of a little bit of tension. But once she entered the room, she was as bright as one of these lights here. And for some reason, she stood out.
Well, and think what good therapy it was to have music. I mean, what do people turn to in a time of crisis? But something like that can take your mind off of it and let you sort of move in the moment. And I would think that you were a good thing at the time.
I found that out, and I've been around the world, I honestly don't know. I'm going to say 4 or 5 times, and I've never carried a gun, because when we go places, I mean, people come, they accept you even if they don't like Americans. This is the music that America has created.
Well, and I've talked to Jeff Hamilton about that, and that Japanese in particular think jazz is the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not sure America recognizes the importance of that as much as the rest of the world.
I've been going to Japan since '68, and when I go over there...
They get it, don't they?
They won't let me pay for anything.
Wow, you're a king.
Well, that's why I put on this much weight.
You're a royalty there.
Cost somebody a bundle. But
they appreciate
they really do.
Good music.
They really do.
And I think that we don't recognize that. You know, European music was it for so long, and American music was almost like a side glance, and it's not that way at all. Again, talking about that umbrella of jazz from its inception to all the names you can barely pronounce and don't even know now, it's still going on.
Yeah.
And is still coming back, and it still comes around. And
Yeah.
give me a good story from the road.
From the road?
Yeah. That you can tell.
Yeah, that I can tell.
I mean, it must get tiring, and yet, I mean, the world, I would love to go around the world 4 or 5 times.
When I first started, and I don't know when I want to say first started, but the first time I went on the road, I was up in Chicago, and this had to be 58, 59.
Because you left right after you graduated.
Yeah, 58. Well, that's because Robert Carr was a teacher here at that time, and he got me a scholarship to the American Conservatory of Music, and all I had to do was go up there and play. And Robert Carr told me what they were going to ask me to do. He told me what to practice. It was like having all the answers for the exam.
Wow.
And I mean, by the time...
What an opportunity,
yeah,
too.
it really was. So I went up there.
Get a good jump start.
Yeah. I went up there and I passed the exam with my right hand only, you know. So, I mean, not bragging. I mean, he prepared me like that. So it wasn't anything I was shaking or scared or didn't know. And then after being up there a year, I was with this guy, Eddie Harris, which I've said, this was the first jazz record to ever sell 1 million copies. And it was Exodus to Jazz. And we, all 5 of us, got in one car. It could have been a station wagon. It seems to me it was a car. It had to be a station wagon because we had all of our instruments and our luggage.
This is how you used to travel?
This is how we traveled.
Cross country?
Yeah.
Non-air conditioned?
Cross country, yeah. Now, see, I don't know if we went cross. Yeah, but we went from Chicago to Detroit or St. Louis.
You were Midwesterning.
Yeah, we couldn't go too far, but something like that. And we'd tie the stuff of luggage on top of there, you know. And so one day, here we are going down the highway, just having a ball, going to the next job, and we pull in down that filling station, and some car pulls in right behind us. And, hey, you guys, one of your bags on top of your car blew off
An
about
instrument.
5. Yeah, well, no, it was a suitcase. And luggage. One blew off about 5 miles back the road. Well, you know, we all jumped out of the car immediately to see if it was our bag.
Yeah.
And then
Never mind it if it wasn't yours.
Right. And that's exactly what happened. Everybody jumped out all excited.
It's not mine.
Oh, not mine.
No big deal.
Yeah. And so we had those kind of horror stories, and that was when we started. Then it kind of grew up, and I joined something like Count Basie. Then we got to go on the Greyhound bus, and those would always be at every airport to pick us up to take us then wherever we went on from there. And on Basie's band bus, everybody had the same seat no matter what year
Assigned.
it was. Yeah. And the drummer's seat was the 4th seat back on the driver's side. Now, the reason for that was that seat is more towards the middle of in between the 2 wheels. And anybody that travels on a bus knows that it's most comfortable in between the 2 wheels.
Not over the wheels.
Not over the wheels. So the guys that were considered lead players, lead trumpet, lead sax, lead trombone,
Good
the
seats.
drummer, we
Good
got
seats.
good seats.
Did the people over the wheels know?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I bet you fought over that.
And then there was
I know how important I am to the band. I'm on the wheels.
Well, and imagine I come in the Basics band at 27 years old, the youngest guy to ever play with this band. Now, because I'm the drummer, I get a good seat.
Immediately.
Now, immediately.
You're the one.
Well,
You're the backbone.
And there were these other guys that sit back there in the back by the restroom and all this and over the wheels. They're saying, the drummer's coming, come on, Keenan. You know.
They got to treat you right.
There were many a nights that I would just get up out of my seat and go back and sit and talk with them because I didn't want them to I didn't want them to feel like that.
Nice guy for a drummer.
Yeah, well, they would play cards back in the back, and that's where
That's where the fun was.
That's where the fun was. So anyway, and that's the bus. And nowadays, with Natalie Cole, we fly on private jets
Everywhere.
And we get off and we get either in a limousine or they have tour buses. Now these tour buses, they're like what the rock and roll kids go in. That thing is better equipped than most apartments I ever had. So I mean, you can go in a tour bus. There's a fax machine, a full kitchen, a bath. There on some of the buses with the bands there were 6 cots. You got your own bed and everything that you can go in that has its own TV in it with the earphones and things. And I mean, these new buses now are so modern. I say, wow, if these things had been around then, maybe some of these people like Basie and even Duke and them would still be alive today.
Yeah, right.
Because I mean, the hardest part of the whole thing is travel. You travel 22 hours and the show is 2 hours, you know, so it's that other 22 hours that are the killer.
You know, we want to hear you play, and we're not set up for that right now, but we're going to tail you in to the end of this program and let the audience get a taste of Harold Jones. I am so pleased to meet you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Who
you.
needs them?
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Focus on the Arts. I'm Chris Rogan. Bye-bye.
Chris Rogan welcomes your comments, suggestions, and opinions about Focus on the Arts. You may call her at 973-8582, voice mailbox number 1, or you can email your comments to crogan@indiana.edu.
Chris Rogan's wardrobe supplied by The Secret Ingredient.
Focus on the Arts is made possible by a financial support grant from Indiana University East and is produced by Indiana University East in cooperation with Whitewater Community Television.